How you doing, folks? Alright, so we're moving on from the base coated miniatures in this video, and we're talking about washing or shading your miniature. Now, I will be using in this video known oil. Now, it's the Citadel shade, as you can see. And this is where I've had a little bit of a dilemma within myself about how I'm going to concentrate on this, how I'm going to do videos for this channel. Now, I'm assuming right now, people are, at the time of recording, the people who are watching my videos, whether rightly or wrongly, I'm assuming this, that you're going to be new at painting and collecting the Warhammer Conquest magazines. If you don't get a bottle of this with your Warhammer Conquest magazines at some point, I will be extremely disappointed with Games Workshop. But I can't really teach you painting properly, or I say properly, I can't teach you the way that I paint and the way that they paint in the Citadel, in the Conquest magazines at the same time. In the way that I paint, I will do whole sections of a model at the same time, and then move on to another section and repeat steps 1 to 3, you know, whatever the steps would be. But basically I go through the miniature systematically, doing individual colours at a time. It's the way I do it. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, some people will base coat their entire miniature in all the different colours and then come in with their shades and do all the shading that they need to do. Then they'll go in and do all the layering, which is another video for, you know, soon. It's not the way that I operate. I do whole blocks of colour at a time. For argument's sake, these miniatures here, I do the blue of the armour all in one go, or in my case mostly red. I'll do the armour and I will shade it and then highlight it before moving on to another colour. It's just the way I operate. So this is kind of the way I'm teaching you guys, because it's easy for me to tell you how I do that, rather than me trying to go through the magazine, copying that, and then doing a video about that anyway. Because essentially, I mean, those books are pretty good for you know, painting in that particular way. But that's the way I do it. Okay, so it's a bit of a dilemma for myself to do these videos, and if it's not a problem, feel free, please put my mind at rest and throw that down in the comments, because it is a bit of a dilemma, me telling you to use a colour that you don't have, that I'm assuming that most of my viewers don't have yet. And obviously, if you're watching because you want to learn how to paint, and maybe you already do have some colours, then you might already have this, in which case, you know, it's fine. And you know, like I said, I mean, there's going to be some videos further down the line when we start doing things like gold, where I'm going to use different shades, or I'm going to be layering some things that you might not have the colours for yet. And specifically, you know, I don't know how GW are going to teach you how to paint the miniatures, so I could end up painting entirely different than the way the Conquest magazines are going to tell you in the first place. You see, there's a dilemma here, because I don't know how they're going to teach you to paint, but I can't wait until the whole Conquest magazine is done and dusted, otherwise, well, there's no point in making the videos. So yeah, I mean, you can go out and you can spend the money on these paints if you like. I mean, you stick around in the hobby, you're going to need this by the gallon, so that's fair enough. Unless, of course, I mean, just recently I've been watching a video on Twitch. Been watching a stream on Twitch. Is Jimmy the Brush on Twitch. I might stick a link in the down below in the description. He paints purely by using you know, bases and layer paints. He doesn't use a shade at all. He just thins his paint down and does it really nicely. And he basically paints his shadow in at the beginning and then layers on top, which is a fantastic way of painting. A bit more complicated and much more time consuming, but it's a fantastic effect. So feel free, if you're on Twitch, you go and check out Jimmy the Brush. It was him and his fiance paint together. It's fantastic. But I'm rambling and digressing there. Yeah, so bear with me. Feel free to either go out and buy a bottle of this stuff, or maybe just stick this in a watch later playlist or something. I mean, this whole thing is going to be on a playlist, so you can check out the videos as and when those pots arrive. During my live streams on Mondays, you know, if I find a section of the magazine that's kind of linking about shading in miniatures, I'll, you know, remind you about this particular video anyway. But yeah, it's up to you. I mean, I'm going to carry on and show you how to do the shading on your miniatures. When you choose to do it is entirely up to you, I suppose, or even if you want to do it. So yeah, so come and have a look, and then we'll get on the shading, shall we? Alright, so washing your models is actually really simple. It's not that difficult at all. And as normal, for these first few videos, I'm going to use the starter brush to start with here, and some Nuln oil. I'm using the starter brush so that you guys can kind of get the look at it. It doesn't really matter what brush I'm using. It doesn't matter. I've got the model here that I've primed with a rattle can. Base coated it with a brush, and so I tried to get a nice fine point, a finer point on the brush as I can. You're not going to be able to get a perfectly fine point, not with these starter brushes. But basically what we're doing is we're going around all of the fine details, all of the grooves and channels, and all of the details that the model's got on it, and we just want some wash inside all of those details. And basically we're just adding shadow to where light would have difficulty getting to, and that's with all of it covered. You see, we got all of those grooves have got some wash in it. We need to leave this to dry, and it is a bit messy, so we are going to have to come back with some Macragge blue to tidy it all up, so that we can get it looking a little less dirty, let's say it for that, and tidy it up a bit. So we come back with the base coat, we give it a shake as normal, and we thin it down with some water like we did when we base coated it. And basically we're base coating again, only this time we're going to make sure that we miss all of those grooves that we've just put wash in. And so we're painting all of the flat details. And here I am doing the shin at the moment, and the knee pad. And we just want to make sure that we get all of those flat surfaces covered, and basically cover up the wash that we've been put onto the model that we didn't want. And you can see it leaves all of the recesses with the wash inside it, and gives it a really nice shadow. And yeah, and it just makes those details pop. With these miniatures, you really have to kind of force the perspective of light. And so, you know, adding a wash to these recesses will help. And don't forget, even around these really fine details, such as the vent on the back of this backpack here, we do kind of have to do it. We need to paint over it because the wash kind of landed on top of the vent here. So we're just going back over it. Just be very, very careful. A nice fine tip on your brush. I am going to show you how I would do it with my other brushes and my more expensive brushes on the other miniature in a minute. But as you can see, there's the other miniature, but you can see that hasn't got any wash on it, and you can kind of see the effect that washing your miniatures will have. So here we are with the second guy. I'm using a Series 7 brush because it's my preferred type of brush, and the Nuln oil. I use this brush because I feel like I get much sharper point. So what that basically means is when I've got such a fine point, I can get the wash in those details without worrying too much about overflow. It's just much easier. I mean, you do worry about the overflow, but it's much easier to get right into those cracks without it spilling over onto the flat surfaces so much. And I think you can see that there's, I mean, the video doesn't pick it up very well, but you can see that I don't have so much to clean up. There's very little wash on the flatter surfaces, and so, you know, when I come back in a couple of minutes after this is all dry to tidy up the wash, I don't have to essentially repaint the entire model. I quite like it. It's just my preferred way. I've said it before, you know, it's a personal choice. If you're happy to use the brush that you're using, then by all means. I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm just showing you the how other people do these sorts of things. And so I'm coming in again with the McCrag Blue, just like I did with the other guy. I'm still using the Series 7 brush. It's much finer point, like I keep saying. But I can essentially, I just go around the outside of all the panels, doing it this way, rather than trying to do the whole thing again. And I find it a much easier way of doing things, quicker. And don't forget the helmet, of course, on this guy, as opposed to the flat, bare-headed guy. But there we go. I think you can see it was much quicker to. Obviously, I did speed it up. I sped them both up. But yeah, it's much quicker. So, and there they are. I mean, essentially, they look the same. So, it's up to you. Let's finish this one up, shall we? Alright then, there we go. So, let's have a look at this guy. Can we see, is he gonna... There we go, look at that. Let's bring him into the centre. He's nicely shaded. And like I said, you do have to kind of trick the perspective about light. Bring him across a bit more. Come on, get into focus. No, you're going to focus again? No? Alright. And this is the other one. So that was done with the starter brush completely. And this was done with my my expensive brush. I mean, essentially, I mean, quite frankly, I look at these and they look pretty much identical. Yeah, there really isn't much in it. This is why I did both. You can get the same results with cheaper brushes. That's not the point of spending the money on the brushes. Not by a long shot. You know, they look the same. The point about spending the point about spending the money on the brushes is about the time that it takes to get the same result. It did take me longer to do this first guy than it did for this second guy, because the wash went on tidier, you know, or it went on messier on this guy and tidier on this guy. So, you know, this is why I say about, you know, it's all completely such a personal choice. Spend money on brushes, you can save time, but it costs a fortune, you know, if you don't have that kind of money. But then, you know, you can get the same results with cheaper brushes, but they do need looking after more. And again, I will tell you about looking after your brushes further down the line. So, you know, there is that choice, and that's why I'd never try and tell you guys how to spend your money. It's just, that's just the way it is. So these two guys, both of these now, yeah, I mean, they were, they both featured in this video, but I think they will probably diverge from here. I've got some ideas about the next stage in doing the armour is highlighting the armour. And so what I need to do is I'm going to teach you two different ways of highlighting. So on this guy, who has been primed with a rattle can, based with a brush, he's now been shaded with the cheaper brush. I'm going to guess that Games Workshop are going to teach you about how to edge highlight your models, and you'll get the paints to highlight them like that. That's the way the heavy metal team do it in the magazines and all the codexes and all the miniatures that you see painted. So I'm going to use a cheaper brush, the one that you're going to get in your kits, and I'm going to edge highlight this guy. And then we'll move on. There'll be other colours and so on and so forth, which I'll just yeah, I'll come up with some sort of videos and so on and so forth that gives you the ideas about what, you know, how to paint this guy. But we're going to edge highlight the armour on this guy. On this one, which is the guy that was primed with the airbrush, he was based with the airbrush, and also washed with my expensive brush, I'm going to dry brush this guy. Okay, so essentially the finished look may look a little bit different between these two models with the two different techniques used. Feel free to pick apart my videos and choose whether, whichever one you want to use. I just want to show you the different techniques. Okay, so in a nutshell though, this video has been about washing, so thank you for watching it, and especially if you're still with me at the end here. Feel free to give me a thumbs up. Basically what that does me, every time you give me a thumbs up, it means that this particular video was decent enough to warrant it, that I'm on the right track and I'm heading along and you guys are finding what I'm doing interesting. If you've got any comments or suggestions about what I should do or shouldn't do or for the future, feel free, throw them in the comments below. And if you want to watch more from me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and right next to it the bell button if you don't want to miss any of my uploads. Other than that, or you'll find the links all to my social media down the bottom. You'll find Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to support the channel, you'll find the Patreon down there as well. But feel free to peruse those at your leisure, and I'll say thank you for watching this one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ta-ra.